What's up, everyone? My name's Wes. This is Interactive English, which, of course, it's the place that you want to be to practice and improve your English skills. So today it's a very cool lesson because I say it's a cool lesson because I think it's very useful if you are a learner of English. It's actually going to be very helpful even if you are a native English speaker, because I am going to talk to you about today how to give a great presentation. What's the best way to give a fantastic, moving, and really impactful presentation? And we're going to talk about some tips and suggestions that you guys can do in order to give that great presentation that you're looking for. So if you're joining us, please say hello. What's up in the comments? I love hearing from you guys. Just want to give a couple quick shout outs to, hi, Sarah, Richard, Luciano, Amam, Lolly Lolly, Asif, Katie, hello, Ira, Nopen, Faith, Ronaldo, Mehmet, hello. Thank you guys so much for joining me. As we go through this lesson, I'm going to ask you guys some questions. So you will have some opportunities to interact and answer some questions about how to give a great presentation. So before we start, there are a couple of things that I want to talk to you about at the very beginning. And that is, first, I want you to understand that there are many different ways to give a great presentation. You don't just have to follow all of the suggestions in this lesson. There's many different ways to go about it. The next thing I want you to understand is that this is something that I had to learn, and I learned it a few years ago because I actually taught a presentation course at the school that I used to work for. And part of the students were visiting scholars that were traveling to the US, and most of them were going to present their research. And there were people from all over the world. And what I learned is that presentations mean different things in different countries and cultures. So a great presentation in the United States and in the US, that doesn't mean it might be a great presentation in France, or a great presentation in China, or a great presentation in Brazil. So people of different countries and cultures have different expectations. So today, when I talk about giving a great presentation, I'm giving you the American perspective. And in that case, you can think of it like I'm telling you how to give a great presentation to an American audience, to an English-speaking audience. I think it's okay to say that because a lot of the tips and suggestions I'm going to give you, I think are relevant for most people that are native English speakers if they're from the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia. I think if that is your audience, this is going to help you. These are great tips and suggestions. And another reason why it's going to be so useful is because we all give presentations. You might be giving a presentation for work, you might give one for school, and you're going to be talking about things, you're sharing your ideas, your thoughts, and opinions. So this is useful information, especially because I think some people are a little worried and nervous about giving presentations. So let's begin. I want to start out by showing you what exactly are we going to talk about today? Today, it's broken into 3 parts. I'm first going to talk to you about the visual. And when I say the visual, I'm not just talking about pictures and images. I'm talking about anything that people will see during the presentation. It could be pictures. Maybe you have a PowerPoint slideshow, and on that slideshow, you are going to have words. That is also a visual. It's anything that somebody will see during your presentation. The next part of this lesson will be talking about the content. Exactly what is in your presentation? What are you saying? What are you telling people? What are you presenting? And the last part is going to be about you. While you're giving the presentation, what should you be doing in order to make it a great presentation, in order to make it an effective presentation? So let's start out. I love starting out with questions. So I'm going to give you a question. I want you guys to write your answer in the chat. And that question is this, all right? Many great presenters follow a simple rule. And that is this rule: no more than slides, no more than minutes, no less than font size. And this is called the rule. So what number goes in those blanks right there? How many slides, minutes, and font size? Is it the 5, 10, 20 rule? 5 slides, 10 minutes, 20 font size? Is it B, the 10, 20, 30 rule? Or is it C, the 15, 25, 40 rule? I want you guys write your answer in the chat. What do you guys think? This is a nice rule of thumb. That's why I put that thumbs up there. So it's something that you don't have to follow, but I think it's useful and it is good practice if you are going to follow these. What do you guys think? All right. Is it A, B, or C? I want you to write your answer in the chat, and then I will tell you what many great presenters try to follow and what they say. All right. I see some answers in here. Most people, wow, all right. Most people think it might be A. All right. The answer is B. It's talking about the 10, 20, 30 rule, that if you're giving a presentation, it should be no more than 10 slides. It should be no more than 20 minutes, and you should have no less than 30 font size. So let's touch on each of these quickly. So when you're giving a presentation, no more than 10 slides, think about it. Where do you want people to focus? If you're giving a presentation, you want people to be looking at you. You don't want them watching some slideshow. If you have 60 slides and you're just flipping through those slides, people are not going to be looking at you. They should be looking at you and listening to what you're saying. So that's why I'm saying no more than 10 slides. If you have less than 10 slides, that's perfectly okay. I actually try and do many of my presentations with as few slides as possible, because again, I want people focused on me. So you should have no more than 10 slides. That's a good rule to follow. No more than 20 minutes, because if you go over 20 minutes, that's the difference of something becoming from a presentation to becoming a lecture. So when you go over 20 minutes, it gets to be a little too long. And when you think about it, think about some of the most common forms of presentations. If you go online and you are looking for people giving presentations, what is a popular, famous website for that? Most people think of TED Talks. TED Talk stands for technology. What is the E? Not education. Technology, something, and design. And when we think of those TED Talks, you guys can write it in the chat or in the comments if you know. Those are actually presentations that people give. They're sharing their ideas, they're sharing their research, and most of those talks are anywhere from about 10 to 20 minutes. You don't really find them longer than 20 minutes. So that's an actual one resource to think about. So no more than 20 minutes. And even when we do these lessons, these are actual lessons where we're teaching you. We've talked about this and we've decided that if we can make our lessons anywhere from 25 to 35 minutes, we think that is a nice amount of time to have a lesson. That too long, it kind of drags on. But we also want to make it long enough so people can enter the lesson and we can interact and talk with them and engage. So that's kind of what we try to do. But no more than 20 minutes if you're giving a presentation. That's a good rule to follow. And no less than 30 font size. I don't think I need to explain this one, because if your font size is really small, if somebody's looking at your visual and they cannot see the words that are on there, then it's pretty useless. There's no point in having that information on the screen if you can't read it. Judy, entertainment. Exactly. Thank you. Perfect. Technology, entertainment, and design. Thank you, Judy, very much. Excellent. So this is something to keep in mind. Again, it's not something you have to follow. You don't have to follow this rule exactly. Again, it's just something to keep in mind that this is what many great presenters will try to do. Another rule of thumb is this one right here. It is the 6x6 rule. And that just means no more than 6 words per line and no more than 6 points per slide. And that's what I mean. They're talking about bullet points. So again, I think this is useful because when you're writing no more than 6 words, they just need to be short statements. You really shouldn't even be writing sentences up there. You should just be writing a short little statement that kind of captures what you're talking about. And then there's no more than 6 bullet points per slide, because again, when you just start listing all these things, there's just too much clutter. and people start focusing on the slide instead of focusing on you, which is where they need to be focused. So let me give you some examples of some good slides and bad slides. Here, so check out these examples below. These are just a couple that I pulled off of the internet by just doing a search on Google Images. So this good example I thought is, it's just a picture. There's just a few words on there, and you can put that slide up there and just talk about this issue, or say whatever it is you're going to say, and talk for about 5 or 10 minutes, give some examples, tell a story. But this image, it's a good image, and again, there's not that many words on there. You're just talking about one point, and I guess that point is to reframe the issue. I actually think that that picture might be a little too good, because it can maybe be distracting, because people might tend to focus on that. But this is an example. It's a pretty good slide. Now, this one over here, this is not a good example. Again, there's just way too much information, and you would be amazed that even when I was doing my MA, and it was for teaching English to speakers of other languages. So these are people that we are teachers, we are standing in front of other people, we are presenting all the time. Like I am presenting you information right now. And I was amazed at how many slides I would see like this. These people would get up there and they would show a slide, and they would have like 500 words on one slide. And again, nobody is going to read all of that information. The only thing that I would see off of this slide right here is how rivers are formed. All of that other stuff, it's just too long, it's unnecessary. So again, keep this in mind when you guys, if you're putting together a visual, remember, don't have very, very, very few words on there, all right? That's very important. So why do we use visuals? Why is it good to have visuals when we're giving a presentation? Well, the first thing is it just complements the presentation. It's the difference between, I'm telling you this lesson right now. I'm talking to you guys about how to give a great presentation. I don't have to show you any slides or anything. I could just turn it on like this, and I could sit here and talk to you guys for 30 minutes about giving a great presentation. The information is still useful because you guys can listen to what I'm saying, you understand what I'm saying, and you can think about that and keep that in mind when you're giving how to give a great presentation. But I think it's very important when we have these visuals, when we have these slides, it just adds a nice complement to the overall presentation. The other thing it does, and this really helps me, is that it helps you stay focused. Because when I'm giving this presentation right now, I can put this slide up here and kind of see the information, and it reminds me what I should be talking about. It reminds me if I want to add some more information to this point or that point. And it also helps me stay organized as I go through this presentation. So it really helps me stay focused, and it would help you stay focused to have some sort of visual that you can talk about during your presentation. The next thing would be it just helps the audience, you guys, or whoever it is that you are presenting to. It helps them remember what the information is all about. It helps them remember what you presented and what you talked about. So again, these are the different reasons why that you would want to use a visual during your presentation. So going to just let you guys know quickly, if you like what we do, all right? Remember, check us out on Patreon. There's a link in the description. It's another great way to connect with us and support our lessons and support what we do here at Interactive English. So let's look at the next part. Okay, so the next part of the presentation is the content. Okay. What is the presentation all about? What is in your presentation? I have another question for you, and I want you to write your answers in the chat. Okay, here it is. The is something that grabs your audience's attention and makes them want to hear more. This would be the first thing that you guys are presenting. What is that called? What's it called? The very first thing you would say to get the audience's attention, and that makes them want to hear more about what it is you are presenting about. What do you call that? The hook? Do you call it the snare? Or is it called the trap? Write your answers in the chat, and even if you're watching this later, write your answers in the comments. We like hearing you guys when you share answers with us in the comments. So, yes, we got some excellent answers. Great job. Yes, if this is the first thing, that you would say, it's part of your introduction, and that is the hook. The hook is the thing that you would say, whatever information you're sharing to get people's attention and grab their attention. And there are many different ways that you can do this. You can do this by asking a question. Start out with a simple question and then go into your introduction. You can state an interesting fact about the topic or whatever it is you're presenting about. You could tell a story that's relevant to your presentation. You can use a quote to start out with, or even reference an event, something that happened in history that is meaningful to the information that you're going to present. So I think it's always useful to have some kind of hook, and usually they're very short. Unless you're telling a story, it's something that's very quick, and then you go into your introduction. And we try to do it with all of our lessons, and we try to give a quick little hook about what the lesson is about, and usually we'll ask a question or try and say something funny, and then the introduction would come on, and then we'll go into explaining what the lesson is about. So the next time you see one of our videos, think about that. See if you can identify the hook. Or many of the videos that you might watch on YouTube, especially some of the great ones, they will always start out with some type of hook to grab your attention. So keep that in mind, and now let's look at the parts of the content. So when we talk about the parts of the presentation, at this point, I'm talking about the content, like what it is you're saying. And there's only 3 parts to the presentation. You have an introduction, you have a body, and you have a conclusion. It's the same if you were writing an essay. You're going to have an introduction, you're going to have a body, and you're going to have a conclusion. I wanted to give you some of this information up here because it's kind of a guideline as to how much time you should spend on each part. So the introduction, you could spend anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, not 10 to 15 minutes, 10 to 15% of your presentation talking about the introduction, and the hook is part of the introduction. The body, that is the main part of your presentation. It is what you are actually really trying to tell people about. If you're trying to inform them, if you're trying to convince them, persuade them, or even entertain them, it should take up about 75% of your presentation. And then the conclusion at the end to wrap up the presentation would only be about 10%. Again, this is not a hard set rule. This is just some information that you can follow to help you give a great presentation. So let's look at this next part when you are giving your presentation and when you are giving the content of your presentation. It is so, I'm going to add one more, so important that you make your presentation easy to follow. And especially if you're talking about giving a presentation in English. English is a very linear language. You go from one point and you go down right to the end. So you need to make it easy to follow and to have some sort of logical order. And that logical order could be, your time. It could be chronological order. You're talking about order you're talking about the events in the order that they happen. It could be order of importance. There are many different orders that you could follow, but make sure it's logical. And the other thing is, right here, use signposts to transition between your ideas. Make sure you use the signpost because that makes it easy to follow. And when I say signposts, I'm talking about those key words that tell us where the presentation is going. So those can be sequence words like first, then, next, finally. Or you could have those coordinating conjunctions like however, in addition, if you want to add some more information, or if you get to the end of your presentation, just say in conclusion. As soon as I hear somebody say the words in conclusion, I know that they have gotten to the end of the presentation and they are going to be wrapping it up and ending it. So those signposts make it so much easier to follow. So I encourage you to use signposts, and we did a lesson all about signposts that I will link up above for you guys to check out. And the last part, and this one is also important, is to take a breath every now and then. And the reason I say this is because when people give a presentation, some people, they don't like public speaking. Maybe they get a little nervous. And when people get a little nervous, they tend to speak a little too fast. And they just start talking fast because they want to get the presentation over with. And they just start saying everything really quickly. And then it becomes harder to follow because people don't know what they're saying because they're speaking really fast. So again, take a breath every now and then, slow down, take pauses so that it just helps make the presentation more meaningful. It helps make it easier to follow. So I have one more part that we're going to talk about, all right? And that is this. That is you, all right? What should you be doing when you are giving a presentation, all right? This is very important because, again, most people should be looking at you. So the first thing I want to ask you, again, start with a question, and this is just to get your opinion. In order to give an effective and powerful presentation, you should practice at least times. And this is, again, there's no right or wrong answer. I just want to know what you guys think. How many times should you practice a presentation before you give it to your classmates or your colleagues at work? If you have an important presentation and you want to make it very meaningful and you want to give a great presentation, how many times do you think you should practice that at home or anywhere before you start giving it? All right. What do you guys think? Just write a number in the chat, or even if you're watching this later, write it in the comments. I'm curious. This is just your opinion. What do you guys think? How many times should you practice a presentation? All right. I see some answers. 3 times. Okay. In the mirror, 25 times. All right. Wow. 2 times, 10 times. Again, this is just up to you guys because everybody has a different style. The one thing I would tell you is that I think it goes without saying, the more you practice, the more likely you will give a better presentation because you know what you want to say. Maybe you think of something that you want to add to it. Maybe you want to throw a joke in there, make it a little entertaining at some point. The more you practice, the more you do it. When I was looking up this information, I saw anywhere people would say at least 5 times. Some people said at least 15 times. Another person who was talking about giving TED Talks would say that they would practice their presentation over 100 times before they would go and give the TED Talk. So the more you practice, the better. When I would give presentations, often when I would do it when I was getting my MA, I would probably practice about 10 to 15 times. And I would have my presentation, and usually I would walk to work. I would walk to work and I would walk home from work. And during my walk was about 45 minutes. I would practice my presentation in my head during this time. So 45 minutes, my presentation was 10 to 15 minutes. I could practice 3 times each way. So again, the more you practice, the better. That's the only thing you need to keep in mind. So when you're giving a presentation and people are looking at you, what should you be doing in order to speak effectively? There are some simple things that you can do. The first one is eye contact. Make sure that you make eye contact with the audience, with the people who are watching your presentation. Many times I've seen people give presentations and they have their slides up on the board, and then they just look at their slides. They look at their slides, they read their slides, and they rarely look at the audience. But it is more meaningful to make a connection with those people who are in your audience if you are making eye contact. The next thing would be to use gestures. And you could use gestures with your arms to emphasize a certain point and use gestures, or it could be something as simple as just walking around. This is like teaching 101 when you're becoming a teacher, and if you want to learn, okay, what's something that I can do in the classroom to give an effective lesson? And something that's very simple is just to walk around the classroom. When you walk around the classroom, your students are having to move their eyes. And it's something very small, but it does help keep their attention just a little bit more. So you can use your hands or just walk around. It is very useful. The next thing, we talked about it. Yes, walk around. I kind of jumped the gun and got ahead of myself there. Another thing you can do is smile. And again, I think I mentioned before that this is more an American specific, if you're giving it to an American audience, or even if the American point of view of giving a presentation. And that doesn't mean you have to smile the whole time you're giving a presentation like this, and it looks a little awkward. Just smile when it's like, you're giving your presentation. You should be happy to be sharing this information. You should be happy to be there. And you want people to know that you are proud to be giving them this information. So it's a little difficult to think, okay, well, do I smile at a certain point? Again, it should just be natural. When you say something that maybe is a little humorous, you can smile then. But just keep that in mind. And then the last thing we told you is practice again and then again and then again. The more you practice, the better. That is for sure. All right. So these are the 3 parts of the presentation that I want you to keep in mind that we discussed throughout this lesson. The visual, the content, and you. And if you keep all of this in mind, the next time that you are giving a presentation at school or if you are giving a presentation at work, especially if you're giving a presentation in English to an English-speaking audience, these tips will come in help. These tips will be very useful, and I hope that you can use them and implement them. The last thing I want to mention is if you want to connect with us, cool information and updates about what we are doing here at Interactive English, because we have a lot planned for this year. So thank you guys so much for joining me for this lovely lesson. If you like this lesson and you think you learned something new, please hit that like button down below. Share this lesson with your friends, your colleagues, anybody that you know who is going to give a presentation. Please follow these suggestions. As always, you can write us questions in the comments because we love hearing from you guys, and join our social media classes, which are up here. All right. We're active on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. So thank you so much, Mr. Venkat. Lolly Lolly, yes, practice makes perfect. Carla, Katie, thank you guys for being here. Abdi Rashad, Zisos, I'm just trying to give some shout outs real quick. Sorry, Musari, Raj, Clancy, Yogendra, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be back next time. I will see you guys later. So long.